Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the Executive Director of the Push for Change, Joe Roberts.
It is really great to be here today, and even more so to celebrate the holidays as we go into it. There's a lot of really wonderful things that happen, and I'm going to tell you a story that hopefully will warm your heart and inspire you a little bit. I'm here today because I made new meaning out of the tough stuff. But having a sense of humor is one of those things that allows us to shift what we're looking at, and it gives us a new context. And that's power, because when you can make new meaning out of the tough stuff that happens to you, you've got tools to overcome and get on with it. I was one of those guys in the downtown east side walking around mumbling to himself. And on any given day, if you would have passed me, you would have looked at this guy and said, you know, the possibility or probability of this guy doing anything with his life is pretty low. And you'd be right. That's a pretty fair assumption. I pass these guys all the time. And I'm here today because of investment in other people. Right? I think that the greatest thing that we can do as human beings, as parents, as if we're interested in doing something to put back into the community, is investing in other people. It's the greatest investment in the world. Yeah? I'm here because of a food bank. I'm here because of a shelter. I'm here because of an education system. I'm here because of a country that supports poor and it's marginalized. I'm here because my life was invested in. And when I was growing up, my life was really carefree. And things were really good for the first 8 years. I had a dad who was this legend in my eyes. We were kind of lower middle class, but we didn't know what we didn't have, and we were happy. We had each other. My dad was a man who spoke possibility into our lives as children. He'd say things like, you're brilliant, you're extraordinary, you can do and be anything. In 1975, we got a knock on the door, and my dad at the age of 35 was taken from us. And just like that, everything changed. You know, that was that bend in the river that from that day on, nothing really was the same. And I think partly because of economics and partly because she didn't want to raise these kids alone, she remarried really quick. And the guy that came along next, he wasn't anything like my father at all. He was a violent, abusive alcoholic. And so I went from a guy who would say things to me like, I love you, you can be anything, to a man who would say things to me like, you're stupid, you're dumb, and you'll never amount to anything. And I was 8 and really didn't have the tools to process that. And what I understand today is that if you can get a kid to believe a lie about who they are, you can dramatically limit their possibilities in life. And so that was kind of where I was. At 8 years old, I had a lot of fractures in my self-worth. I was kind of really struggling and trying to figure out where I fit into the world. And when the opportunity presented itself at 9, my brother and his friends were trying drugs, and I jumped in. And I jumped in mostly because it wasn't because I was curious about getting high. It was because I wanted to belong to my brother and his friends. And so I sold myself short so that I could have a connection. And what I'd found is a way to cope. For the first time in my life since Dad died, I felt safe again. And so that's the place I ran to for the next 15 years of my life. It's important for me to tell you that I don't share this story today coming from a place of being a victim. I forgave my stepfather a long time ago. I understand that he got handed it to him from his dad and his dad's dad. The good news is that cycle, it stops in my family. I was lucky enough to find the doorways of recovery and get afforded a second chance at my life. So I'm at peace with my story. Today, my story is one of probably the best assets I have for creating social change. I get to go into a high school and talk to 1,600 kids on Wednesday mornings, and what's cool about going and talking to your kids is they listen to me, because I have an authentic story to tell them and some information to pass on. And if I can change 1 or 2 of their lives, well, then that's something worth doing. Yeah. By the time I was 16, I went to prison for the first time. I was rebellious. I was angry. By the time I was 17, I left the Barrie area. We moved from Midland to Barrie, and I got on a Greyhound bus and I came out west. And Expo 86 was going on in Vancouver, so I said, perfect, I'm going to come out to Vancouver, and I'm going to make a brand new start of it. And I remember I got off that bus and I went down, there was a little park GM place wasn't built yet. And I remember sitting on that little park, and I was looking out at the expo site. There was this giant hockey stick and a big Canadian flag. I remember thinking to myself, this is the town I'm going to make it in. Vancouver is going to be my fresh start. And little did I know that within a few short weeks I'd actually be sleeping under the viaduct. On any given day, I would have been that guy you see pushing a shopping cart, collecting cans and bottles around the downtown east side. And as the months and years went on, I slowly began to lose hope. And until it got to a place in my life where I didn't even recognize myself. And I was at that crossroads where, I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I'd messed my life up so bad. I believe that discontentment is the catalyst to change. I live in the illusion of self-sufficiency. I don't ask for help when I need it. And in my brokenness, I reached out and I said a little prayer, and I asked God for help. And it was a prayer that went something like, help me, I don't deserve a second chance. But if you give me a second chance, I promise I'll maximize the opportunity. I won't waste it. The next day I walked into a Salvation Army soup kitchen, one I used to frequent all the time. And he said, what can we do for you today? And I said, I want to get clean. And he said, well, what can we do? And I said, I want you to call my mom. But my mom was strong. And she got to a point with me where she said, I love you, but you're on your own. Every time I try to help you, all it does is, you just keep coming back, and it's not helping you. So no more money. Don't call me if you end up, in jail. Like, I don't want to hear any more of that. The only call I want to get from you is I'm willing to go to treatment. So I called Mom, and with the help of these folks at the Army, and I said I want to get clean, and she said, are you really willing to do the work, or is this just another me bailing you out? And I said, no, I'll do the work. She said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. She flew from Toronto out here to Vancouver, met me on the corner of Main and Hastings, gave me the biggest hug I've ever had. She whispered, I love you in my ear, and she took me back to Ontario, where I entered into treatment after detox, and my life began brand new. When I look back at my life, there's some key people that were there, but the biggest was Mom. And the thing that keeps me awake at night is how many kids in this country have all the possibility that I have, but they don't have my mom. Sometimes all we need is somebody to say, I believe in you. I don't know about your life, but my life, there's 5 men who were there, who said, I believe in you, and they helped sculpt and shape and build me. They really helped me develop into who I am today, because they invested their time and their energy. The tragedy of life isn't that it ends too soon, it's that we wait too long to begin it. We hold back because of fear of failure, fear of success. But when we actually cut loose and put the pedal down and find out what's possible, we actually tap into that possibility mindset. 3.5 years later, I walked across the stage at Loyalist, and they called out my name. They said, Joe Roberts, Dean's List. I graduated with a 3.94 GPA. Anyway, so what was really cool about that day was Mom. She had this look of peace and contentment. She was real proud of me. She said, I can finally go to bed at night, and I don't have to worry about the police knocking on the door and telling me you're gone. Life for me is a collection of really good days and bad days, and that was one of those really, really good ones. And in less than 12 years, I went from pushing a shopping cart around East Hastings to being on the cover of Canadian Business and Maclean's magazine as one of the 10 Canadians who make a difference. I went out and got all the things they said go and get. The money, the accolades, and I got to a place where I was completely empty inside. I'd done well in business, and I thought that was it. You get there and you're happy, but it wasn't. On doing something to help those kids that don't have a mom like I have. Well, Sean, I have to tell you something funny about him. He's part Australian and he's part Canadian. So he says to me, he says, I don't know, mate. He says, Canadians, when they want to raise money for things, they're like wandering across the country. He says, I got a better idea. He says, why don't you push a shopping cart? It's a symbol of homelessness. It's your story. It's the thing that you're trying to avoid for young people. It's chronic homelessness, like where you were. He said, why don't you push a shopping cart across Canada? And I was excited by this idea, and I've always been a possibility guy. And that was the beginning of an organization called the Push for Change. In our charity, we created a firewall. What I mean by that is we said, if we're going to be true to the cause, 100% of the money we raise needs to go support youth homeless prevention. On the 1st of May, this coming year, which is 142 days from today, we'll commence a 9,000-kilometer walk across what I believe to be the greatest country in the world. It's going to take us 517 days, 17 months. We will be traveling through all 10 provinces with visits to the 3 Northern Territories, and we're going to have over 400 engagements. We plan to engage with different communities, talk to provincial, federal, and municipal leaders. The goal is to raise 50 cents from every Canadian, and what we're going to do with that money, 100% of that money, is invest it in something called the Upstream Project. When I looked at the alignment between UA, you're an organization that believes in mentorship. You're an organization that believes in building young people. You're an organization that is interested in building a stronger backbone and fabric for Canadian young people. So we're proud to call UA our presenting partner as we look at the road ahead. And here's a vision that I have for you. I know I have a long road ahead of me, but when I come back into the Lower Mainland, I want to come back here to this building, and I want to celebrate what we've done together. So if you've ever put $5 in one of them red baskets, if you've ever given of your time or your treasure or your talent, you probably never get to meet some of those people whose lives you've had an impact on while you were meeting with them tonight. And my life has meant the world to me, but it's also meant the world to them. And so I'm going to take that opportunity, and I'm going to go across this country, and we're going to try and do some more of this together. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Our local here, we've pledged $20,000 to the Push for Change.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, that's 40.
That's 40. That's right, guys. We got matched by another 20 for
Yeah. I can pay.